I did.
Good.
You know, I had the list of things I've lost and lost where I've had stolen from.
Yeah, you lost an iPad, didn't you?
Yes.
That's a tragic loss right there. But I think Apple has a way of turning that thing off.
Well,
Should they want
the thing
you.
is, the person likely can never get it on another network.
Right.
So there's no way for Apple
What
to
good
connect
is it?
to it.
Right, right.
Because once they leave our building, it's already locked by my PIN. I get 10 tries to break my PIN.
Really?
Start swapping out the motherboard, but
Yeah.
I don't think it was.
Why would you?
Because I immediately, once I realized that it happened,
Right, right. That's the problem.
but the super upsetting part was it was stolen from me literally behind my back in my own office.
That's just seems wrong.
What was it? Your phone?
Hopefully you upgraded to something newer and
Well, that was an
bigger.
iPad Air, this is an iPad Air 2.
okay.
But what I didn't realize is the gray is what I wanted as opposed
Silver or
to silver
yeah,
or
yeah.
black or whatever, because I wanted. Really not mine anyway, it's for law schools.
You know, these finding technologies are pretty amazing, though. I did lose my cell phone. I literally dropped this one right here. Back in my pocket. I dropped it somewhere. I don't know where it was. And I did that find my cell phone thing, and it told me it's only 3 blocks away from you. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, how's that possible? And I go wandering around. There it was, sitting in the grass. So there can be success stories. I'm in Hawaii. I've never been to Houston. You recognize him? Brian Huffman?
Brian Huffman.
That could be. There are a few of us floating around there. Well, there are a lot of Hoffmans too, as opposed to Huffmans, like with that. You know, I always know it's going to be long, but unfortunately we had a 3-hour plane delay in Salt Lake City, so that I wanted to get here around 2-ish, and I got here at about 7, which means I missed the little thing for the speakers and everything else. So.
Please give my regards to Vicki.
I will. She wanted to be here too, but she's back home working on our renovation in our library. That was a great panel of august people that you had there for the last presentation. Sorry you didn't have more questions, but that's okay because I learned a lot just by what they were telling us. We're doing digital archives on a shoestring, so they're way out there compared to what.
Ask a question if you want.
Were those questions already from people, or did you
I
populate?
wrote questions.
Yeah.
I work with really big stuff too.
Open educational resources, so like free textbooks, material for teaching that doesn't have a cost. I said, a lot of people don't know what it means. Maybe I should have put, but if I put open educational resources, that doesn't tell you much either. So that's the secret here. This is advocacy as much as anything else.
Are you having Callie at your school next year?
I wish.
We all wish.
Yeah.
We all wish.
Yeah, so is Callie.
Yes.
I'm sure Vicki would be on board.
Oh, she would.
I'm sure.
Yes, we want it.
I'll share that with her.
Yes.
Even though I know this is being recorded, so.
And give to that Paris, London, Rome.
Good start to something more international.
Yes.
I'll give people a little more time before I get started, just in case. I don't know. we're still,
OEI actually.
Yeah, they're in Cyprus in the fall.
Where's Calvin?
There's a big announcement. In Phoenix,
nice.
at the new Arizona State.
So John and I did ultimately figure.
Ultimately, got sidetracked though.
Yes, I did. Salt Lake City.
They do have new
Hitting all
laws.
the new schools.
So they started yesterday. They started moving the library. Let's hope it's not 110 to 120.
Well, we will be inside.
Yeah, well,
Hotels, the hotel we're looking at across the street.
oh, another one.
Well, should I go ahead and get started? You guys mind? If you'll wander in,
Time, go
they
ahead.
wander in, okay. I actually didn't time this, so it could be anywhere between 30 and 40, maybe 50 minutes. We'll just see how it goes. And I'm really freewheeling. You guys can ask questions anytime. You don't have to wait till the end. I'm not a big believer. Okay, so I'm Brian Huffman, and I am the Electronic Services Librarian at William S. Richardson School of Law. I'm probably the only one who came here from Hawaii. I don't know if that makes me the furthest attendee at this conference this time, but it may or may not.
You're from Canada,
Canada?
but you're still probably
I'm
from.
probably further.
Unless they're
in the way.
far western,
Yeah.
West Territory province.
Yeah, it could be. This is my first Cali, so I was excited to be here. And so my first time to present, of course, at Cali, so it's kind of a unique honor. I probably wouldn't be here if I wasn't presenting, because it's just the nature of our budget, but I'm glad to be here and talking about a topic that I'm very excited about, OER and legal education. Now, I'm fairly new to, I have to tell you, I threw some pictures in here. Studies have shown that to break up the monotony, it's good to put something in there to kind of excites the people. Hopefully you guys have been to Hawaii. If you haven't, well, you can enjoy my pictures. It also makes me feel a little less homesick. So that happens to be at the Pali, which is the divide between Oahu, where you can see the east and the west, or the windward and leeward side of the islands.
You're wrong for making us all jealous.
Well, all the more reason to come to Hawaii if you haven't been there.
I've been there. It's on my list. You.
So today we're going to talk about 3 aspects to OER. I'm going to tell you what it is and why you should care, and that's a big topic in itself. And then I'm going to address my research of what I discovered what law schools are doing in the area of OER, which I'll give you a quick hint. It hasn't been a lot. There have been a few players who've done some good work, but just a few. And then 3, then I'm going to kind of hopefully use that as a starting point to show you how you could take these seeds of germination of OER back with you to your schools, and either yourself or help encourage other instructors to make use of it. So I'll give you a little background on myself. I'm on this august team at the University of Hawaii, and we started our OER team about 3 years ago when Cable Green came out and some other individuals from Creative Commons and did a whole kickoff on the open access movement at the University of Hawaii. So I just am a small player in a large group of individuals. Mainly you'll notice a lot of librarians on that list if you look, and it's intentional because the gentleman, William Chismar, who's the Dean of Outreach College, was in charge of organizing the OER at University of Hawaii, and he hired a librarian on a 1-year term who was basically the head of all things OER, and that's how we got involved. Now, of course, the law school is just one small component of a system that includes 3 main university campuses and I think 5 or 6 community colleges. So it's a huge system involved in all this. We had a team, we meet monthly, and then we set up educational resources for our faculty. And then we created a repository. These are important kind of concepts you might want to think about. And feel free to come to our website. If you just Google OER, it'll be the top hit. On that site, we have a repository and a site for resources. So we wanted it to be a go-to place for the professors and the faculty and anyone else who was interested in OER, so they could find materials there, which includes the speeches, the presentations, the actual OER resources. Now, I keep using this word OER, and I hope you guys know what it is, because maybe you don't. And that's kind of the first question I'm going to ask of all the people here in the room. How many of you were aware of what OER was before you came to this presentation today? Just two? Just two, really? Okay, of the two who raise their hands, have you actually used anything that you would consider an OER, an instructional method? You have? Great. Well, I asked that question because these are the two questions that our survey asked all of our faculty at UH. And they discovered that the awareness of OER was about 50%. Now, I think that's incredible. I'll tell you that it was a small sampling, though. I think they only have maybe 100 some individuals out of 4,000 who answered their survey, so I don't know how relevant it is. But still, I was amazed that those who did take the time to answer, half of them were aware. Of that 50%, though, only about 35, which I still think is an amazing amount, actually have experience with OER. So you're kind of in good company there. Well, when I use the term OER, I'm talking about a lot of different tangential discussion points, all grouped under the idea of open educational resource. So I'll kind of throw some of these up because I think they're important buzzwords that fall into it. So we're talking about, always we're talking about free if we can. We're talking about open content. You might also, believe it or not, consider course reserves. At the core, they're an open educational resource. They're not necessarily digital, but they're the idea that you put something, at the library that's free for the students to use. So it's an open educational resource. Zero-cost textbook is what our campus used to define OER. They had to have some kind of litmus test, so that's where they went. The idea that a class provides some educational resources to the students at no cost, and they wanted to track that. But there are also larger scheme, what do I call these? They're just different entry points into the whole OER world. So in other words, when you're thinking about OER, you'll be thinking about these different modalities of how you can transport something electronically or free. So I put up there, PDFs at its core, if they don't charge you for it, it's a great way to convey an educational resource. WordPress, if you do your own blogging or are able to program and code. EPUB is another method of getting it out there that's competing with the Amazon model. Kali is a wonderful resource also with the E. Langdale material, so they have OER on there. YouTube, if you think about it, it's an open educational resource material. Of course, I put the Creative Commons symbol up there because I think you always should be thinking about that. And I put the little symbol there in the left showing different modalities. You need to think about the different ways people will access this open educational resource, whether it be laptops, their phones, whatever it is they need to reach it. Oh, and here we have another beautiful picture of Hawaii. This will be a sunset from my condo, but it doesn't look like that every night. That just happened to be a really good night that night. So librarians are really, really interested in OER. I think that's why we even had a librarian leading it at UH. Because if you think about it, at its core, the mission of libraries, what they do, they have always tried to provide, be it not free, at least somewhat free educational materials or books. That was the method to people, one book for one person. So they've always had that idea, and they want it to be accessible and as free as possible. So this is kind of going to our core for librarians, the idea of how do we make a textbook, an educational material, whether it's digital or whatever, available to the user. So I looked around, and we used the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation's definition of what they consider open educational resource. And I highlighted some terms there that I think you need to be following. It needs to be free, legally available, which of course is talking about copyright. And they prefer it to be on the internet, so anyone can reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute. That's the first time you'll see those R's. Now they have the 4 R's. David Wiley, though, who's also someone who speaks a lot on this open content and open educational resources, he would add another one, that retain there. And the whole idea of that is, he's like, you've probably already have material that you've created or have access to, and you need to make sure you keep it. And then while you're moving along, you can reuse it, revise, remix, and redistribution is really important. Make it available so other people can make access to it. So these are the 5 R's. So I went one step further there. Now why? Why would we want OER? I think it's I think it's already known. It's not like the cat's out of the bag on this one. Obviously, one of the big touch points are the costs to students. Textbooks are rather astronomical. I thought about when I went to law school, and that's been some time ago. I think maybe I spent $700 a semester on books now, so they probably double to triple that, and that's just in 20-some years. So, and it keeps going up. We don't see it going down, so it's obviously something that we should be concerned about. But even more further than that is this one really shocked me. When you start looking at the studies, now realize these studies are beyond law school. They're primarily in undergraduate or community college level. They asked the students how many of them don't purchase their books, and they got a pretty, I'll show it to you, they got a pretty shocking, alarming response to that, which really concerned the Pew Foundation. Of course, and there are pedagogical impacts to making this material available. I think our first speaker, Hugh McGuire, talked about some of this, and I'd like to borrow some of his ideas about how important this is and the mission that it provides, and it's on an intellectual point of view as well. So I looked at 2 schools just to see if that kind of cost analysis made sense, and these are the materials they report on their own pages. And of course, a big difference between Yale and Louisiana U, but I was shocked to see that Yale actually says their students pay a little less for their books. I don't know if they're helping them or what's going on there, but they say it's $1,100 per year, whereas Louisiana State University reported $2,200. Close. That's pretty expensive for their textbooks. But another alarming concern is that price has just been skyrocketing and continues to go up. The GAO report indicated that on average, 82% is the amount increased from books in a decade, for just one period. So large number. That's, what is that, 8% per year? It's higher than most inflation rates. But this study that, and actually it was PIRG, P-I-R-G, it was not who I said did this study. In 2014, they asked students basically, and they had a large cohort providing the information, how many of them do or don't buy the books that they need. And they got a shocking 65% reported that they're not buying the books. Now, I don't know if this translates to law school. I hope it doesn't. But this is some basically 4-year colleges. And I wonder how that translates. I'd be curious to see that number. But of that 65%, 94% of them thought it had a deep impact on their grade. So, they're not buying it, and they're concerned about how that affects their ability to learn. Anyone seen this? Has anyone been to Hawaii and seen the temple, the Byoden Temple? It's on the windward side, and it's reconstructed from an actual Japanese temple. It's very beautiful. So this is not a new topic. You guys probably know more than I do if you've been in the legal education world. The idea of open access and materials that you share and make available on the internet have been around quite a long time. I was shocked to see that this Merlot initiative started in '97. I mean, I don't remember knowing about that when I got out of law school, but it's nothing new. And the National Science Digital Library also took a large part in experimenting in OER aggregation. Now, largely none of these are not legal. This is primarily in the STEM area and other academics, humanities and sciences. But then the Organization for Economic Cooperation identified, and they're more of an international organization, they actually called out open learning resources as a key component to supporting access to education, and that was 2007. So again, this has not been a new topic. I just think maybe law schools and the legal environment are a little slow to pick up on this one, perhaps. So I sat down and I did some research, and I figured out what are law schools doing, and who are they? Who are some of the key components? And the 4 that I found, and there may be more, and if you guys know of any, let me know, but I found Harvard, University of Minnesota, CUNY, and Duke were involved in the OER area. We'll start with Harvard. I've actually heard about this one since I've been here, so I know people are talking about it, they know about it. The H2O initiative at the Berkman Center for Internet and Society. It was a partnership between that organization and the law school. And this flavor, these models are different ideas of OER. This flavor is based on a web-based. So the students have access to a web portal, which they use playlists as an idea of how they mix and match the content for the casebooks. And it was piloted with legal casebooks, but now I've discovered they've put their course syllabi on there. And Professor Zittrain is the one who started this. He did his torts class. The thing I'm a little concerned about is this material I gathered in 2014 for a discussion I did at UH. When I went back to update it, I didn't notice that it had been updated since 2014. So I'm curious to know what's been going on since then. I had contacted him back then, and he told me that he got positive reception from the students and the faculty, but I haven't had a chance to touch base with him since then. So I'm curious where it's at. That's what I'd like to know. And I'm going to look into that when I have the time. Now, I also lived in Minnesota for 16 years before I went to Hawaii, and I was excited to discover that my colleagues there have really got involved heavily in the OER. And they're the only site that I found that had a large number of legal materials in the OER, and includes Cali materials, so there must be some coordination going on there between Cali and the University of Minnesota. They use the OpenStax platform for how they create and distribute their open educational resources. And they call it peer-reviewed because they have an interesting concept where they'll put the book on there, and they ask the members in the community to read it and do a review. In fact, they were encouraging their own members at the school to do so. I think they were giving a $500 incentive if they would review an OER material. So you'll find that some of those materials, they use the term peer-reviewed. I put that in quotations because we all know that that's kind of a term of art. But if it is individuals who are in the legal field, who know something about that, and they've taken the time to review it, at least it gives someone some initiative to consider that this might be a quality textbook that they might want to consider for their own course. So that was important that they did that. Currently, I checked, there's 24 titles on that library in the legal field, and I'm going to be borrowing from that when I give you guys some ideas of what to use when you go forward. Now, CUNY had a different model. They partnered with a publisher, Aspen, and they created a resource called Progressive Legal Research 2013, and it's still updated. I found it recently. It's still on there. And this was intriguing because I just went to one of the discussions from our colleagues about the teachinglaw.com, and I see some correlations between that material and this, in so much that it used already copyrighted material, because Aspen let them do that for this project, Wolters Kluwer, and then they took the time, they had to do the work, they meaning the librarians. The publisher was relieved of the editorial content and the work, and they had to create and make this product. So it took them basically about 2 to 3 months to do this, and they had a 3-member team. So you can see the work that would go into doing this, and they were using copyrighted material already. This isn't free, so this wouldn't classify at my school as an OER, strictly speaking. It's not free, but it's certainly very, very reduced in price. I think the last time I looked it up, $40. So it's, it's definitely something that's in the price realm of a student, and it's far less expensive than what they normally would pay for this. The one caveat I put there at the bottom, I don't know if this has been fixed, but the last time I looked into it, they did say be wary if you use this model, because the publisher's method of creating the index was unusable. I don't know what their problem was, but maybe they fixed it since 2013. They had to either ditch the index or the librarians had to create their own because it wasn't working with it. And again, the publisher doesn't put as much time and effort into this. They let the librarians or the editors, they have to do that. So that's kind of the downside of this model. Duke has a book. It's an intellectual property open source textbook. And it's been, I think it's in its 2nd edition now, so it's doing quite well. It's kind of maybe closer to the model of the free teaching, the teaching one that is being done, because it has a charge involved here. It's not, well, actually, no, this one is free. This one is free if you want to print it, a print on demand, it's $35. if you were willing to use just the electronic version, it truly is free. So I would consider this one definitely an OER. In fact, it's Creative Commons. You can take from it and borrow it. You can customize it. It's a really good resource if you already have someone teaching IP, because they could just borrow a chapter or two from this if they found it to be useful. So this one's definitely OER. Oh, this is my dog Mortimer, and he's on the beach. My girlfriend is an illustrator, so I threw that one in because it's still Hawaii, and I certainly miss my dog. So what are the barriers if you want to, moving forward? And this is almost a no-brainer. You already know this one, but it's good to get a report and do a study and find out for sure from a survey that these are, in true, the barriers that you will encounter if you want to create or use OER at your institution. Number one, the most touted barrier is just the fact that these things take time. They take a lot of time to make. And the skill that is there because the professors, or whoever you're asking who actually has this content, may not have the skill it takes to make an electronic resource. So they're going to need help with that. I mean, they may know how to give you their information in a Word document. They may even have it in a PDF, but more than likely they have written notes. Or they may have some sites that they use, but they don't have the skill. They know how to actually coalesce this, and they don't want to take the time either. So that's going to be your first big barrier. And then the second one I touched upon when I mentioned about peer review, the idea, so concerned about quality. If they do see a resource out there, they're going to look at it. It's like they already know the textbooks and the case books that they've been using for many years, and they rely on them, and they already have a relationship with those. Unless they're a new professor and maybe are looking for something and they want to put their own stamp of approval or name on a resource, there's going to be that concern about quality that you're going to encounter. So these were the two that we experienced at UH when we did a survey, and they're also the two that I discovered in the readings that I read about OER. So I think it's definitely a true problem. So you might ask, well then, Brian, what would be a plan or method for how one could start an OER program? Well, I'm not going to recreate the wheel here. Someone's already done this. We have a wonderful program at our community college level at Leeward, and they have been in the trenches doing the work of OER. And when I say that, I mean I'm really impressed with what they've done. The instructional librarians there and the faculty meet, they get together, and they have had workshops, and they have had independent instructional programs, and they've come together with this flow chart. And of course, the whole idea there is you basically have to be ready for OER. That was the big thing they encountered. Is your institution at a point where it would value that? And by that I mean, would it give professors the credit they need to actually, and the time and the money they need to do it? If the answer is no to the majority of those questions, then you're going to have a problem right away. So that's an institutional problem that you need to work on. And at UH, we did that. What we did is we gave the professors a stipend, and this is not the law school, this is the undergrad school. We gave them, I think it was a $500 stipend, and then I think we made inroads into their promotion and tenure so they could consider this as an item they could put in their dossier. Those are important things for faculty. And as a result, then they met and they gathered the material. They decided whether or not something already exists in the world out there that they can use, or if they need to implement and create their own, with the idea of keeping whatever it is they have open to the world. They can't keep it closed. So they got together and they had these mashups. I actually would call them hackathons, and they worked to create an item, and then they adopted it if they could. And they made sure there was no cost. And the evaluation is an important process too, to make sure that they're constantly assessing this product with the students and other faculty members in that field if they can. So that's kind of a graphic way of looking at it. So some people aren't graphic, so I broke it down into these three main areas about how we actually implement and move forward in open educational resources. The first idea is, well, maybe you just make one. Maybe you already have the material that it would take to create your first open educational resource. In fact, that's how I'm going to start, because I teach a class on advanced legal research and scholarly research methods, and I have my own material. So I'm just going to move forward with what I have. One might argue I already sort of do OER in that I have created videos, and then I have created materials that I've put into a course management system, but I have not opened it up to the world. I've not gone the next step so that other people could borrow my material and share it and use it. So it's one of my goals. But should I not have already made my own? Then maybe I should just use some that's already out there. That's the next concept. And I've given you two good resources here, the Open Textbook Library at the University of Minnesota, and there's also this other one called Open. That's the Open Professionals Educational Network, and I gave you the link there. It doesn't have as much legal material as the first one, but there are maybe 4 or 5, these cross-disciplinary areas like business law or commercial law, some other areas where you could take that and make the use of it, but it's not strictly a legal text casebook for sure. Well then, if you can't make, or you're not finding stuff you want to use, but you're finding it's not quite what you want, then the next concept, obviously, is to remix. And that can take your own material and or this other material and put your own personal stamp on it. I mean, say you find one of those OER books and you think, well, I like 2 or 3 of these chapters, but they're not in the order I would teach it for sure. That's the beauty. Actually, one of the great beauties of OER is you can actually put it in the order, use what you want, take out what you don't, as long as it's information that's out there for the world in the Creative Commons, you don't have any problem with that. And then, please, once you do it, then share what you've created. I mean, that's the whole goal here. There are a lot of resources out there that are now under the concept of open access. And this is a wonderful starting site, this Find OER from the Open Professionals Educational Network. They have, I think, 50 categories on there of what's an OER. I mean, we're talking about videos, pictures, other educational components which may or not be software or web-based, books, etc. It's just because when you're creating this, you have to think about all these different components that go into the one final product that you want to create. So you can't just think about text. That simply wouldn't be good enough. So that's why I put this on here so that you have other resources that you can make use of that fall under the open educational resource. Now, if you're still stuck and you say, I kind of have an idea what you're talking about here, I think I could make a textbook, but what does that entail and what's all the work that's involved in? So I'm certainly not here in 60 minutes to tell you how to do that, but here's a good starting point. OpenLearn, and there are other courses that are like this, are free educational resources that you could take if you have the time to get started and learn what really it would take to make an OER. This will also be a good resource to share with professors who are interested in it. This one happens to be a free 15-hour course that basically walks you through all these components on learning how to create your own open educational resource. But I've also taken some of the pain out of it for you and did the work. I have found a list of at least 5 categories here where I think if you were going to go back to your professors and you wanted to share some good, and I'm really hopeful about this because I actually heard a presenter here at Cali who, she was actually talking about something else. She was talking about the digital natives and the immigrants, but she shared one moment while she was talking about how she made her own material. So I caught her later and said, so you have open educational resource material? She said, yes, of course. I borrowed from this contract doctrine, Verkecki. So yes, people are doing it, and I was intrigued, and I'd love to have her be my poster child. So hopefully more professors will look into this and consider it, and she just did it because she realized the cost to the students was severe, and she's like, why do I need to make them pay that? I can create this on I know the cases, and I update the cases, so I can make my own. But anyway, I have provided here 5 categories that I think are some really good materials that are in there, and of course, they're not comprehensive. That's the problem with OER. We're not there yet. This is kind of like our first speaker who said, we have a chance here by incremental impacts to make a great impact. Well, these are the small increments, the starting points, but we need more. This isn't enough to cover all the major courses that we have at school, of course, at a law school, and there's not even enough in each one of those to cover a course, perhaps. The criminal law one might be comprehensive, I'm not sure. Yes?
You could add, for Kirky, like the 3 volumes is like 1,000 pages.
It's huge, yeah.
It's huge. It does cover, like, literally.
Good.
If you can actually make your way through it. But we've also recently, we have a
Well, there are more. I took a small gathering. You're absolutely right. There are more than this. And I realized that those were like kind of topical coverings, but yes, there are more. This is just a starting point, because I think, yeah, on this one, if you really want to make some success or some headway, you have to start kind of small on this topic if you want to get people involved in OER. So if I've showed you some resources, then you might want to know what can I do with that? How can we move forward? And this is kind of my idea. I think, we have this concept in the coding world and some of the other creative worlds of these hackathons. I think it'd be kind of cool if maybe we could go back to our law schools and do an OER hackathon, with the goal that if you're going to actually take the time to do this, they have to walk out with a resource that can be used in class. So I would invite professors and maybe their research assistants, because we know research assistants do a lot of work. Professors, they get paid, at least at our school, for the work they do. So, and a lot of them really understand this OER, and it's benefiting their colleagues and their cohorts. So I really encourage you to involve them if you can. And then ask them to bring their syllabus and any other pre-created materials they already use in the class, with the idea that hopefully they have something that we can start with, a good starting point for them. And then do a little work before that. Find at least one OER resource that's in existence in their area of law, and send it to them ahead before you have this hackathon. And give them a chance to look at it and see if they'd even like it or not. Give them a chance to review it, and hopefully they do like it or like components of it. And then invite them to come and take time to revise and remix. Someone needs to be in the room who has the skills, the technology, who understands how to bring these components together and how to create something electronic that can be used. So that's going to be kind of your job, probably, unless you have someone else who has IT skills who can help with that. Because you can't expect the professors to necessarily know how to do that. And then last but not least, make sure you ask them to use this in their class. Even if it's not the sole resource they have, it could be a supplement to what they're doing, and then get some evaluation and assessment on it so you can move it forward. Of course, beach. Can't have a picture of Hawaii without having a beach. I think is at Bellows, which is at the windward side. Not very calm day. So I'm asking you, if you can, to at least consider taking a pledge. I'm doing it myself. I told you I'm going to create an OER resource for my advanced legal research class I'm doing. I would hope that you would consider doing that too. So even if you don't teach, maybe you can find someone at your school who does, who would be considered, and actually I need to do that. That's the next big step, is I need to move this forward with our faculty. But I figured if I don't start with myself, I have no legitimate claim to ask someone else to do it. So I'm going to start with myself. And then encourage them to actually consider using OER in their courses. And this is advocacy as much as anything else. I mean, with the way the cost is with the legal profession right now, and there's kind of some excitement too, if you think about it, that the students, I don't know what's going on at all your schools, but we require them to have laptops. So they're already coming in with the technology. And many of them would love, I still watch them lugging the books around, they would love to have this material in electronic format if possible. So I mean, it's really important for the students as much as it is for the professors themselves. If they create this and they get out there in the world, it's also good for them and their academic esteem. And now in no way during this discussion did I touch upon everything that's out there. There are a lot of tangential issues in OER, and I just put a few up here and I'm just going to quickly touch on them, but they're topics in and of themselves. So what you have, at least at the University of Hawaii, is we discovered we have people who have already kind of created some semi-open educational resources. And this is not in the legal field, this is primarily in the science and humanities. And they've created these readers, or these things that they've copied. And of course, they probably thought fair use, educational use. And maybe they're right, maybe they're not. I'm not here to be the copyright police. But that's obviously a concern that you have to take in consideration if you're going to put it out there and give it to the world. There could be some copyright issues. And encourage them to use their own material as much as they can and get permission for things they can't. Course reserves, again, I mentioned that's an area that's already ripe for educational reform, and people are already using it in a way, but it's not good enough. I mean, we only have limited copies. The students sometimes feel inconvenienced, so they have to come and check it out at the library. Maybe they can only use it 2 or 3 hours. So it's not a perfect solution to the whole idea of OER. Creative Commons is a good touching point for finding and using materials already copyright free. Make sure you continue to use that model and with your own materials if you can. Now, accessibility, I put that one in there because that's not about the idea of a librarian accessibility, it's about disability. So that's another big touch point that the OER world is realizing, that sometimes they make this material, but it's not accessible to those who have a disability, whether it's blindness or deafness. And so you need to be at least concerned and knowledgeable about that area of the concern as well. And there are apps. I actually mentioned this to the friend downstairs that I talked to who was creating her own OER that can actually help you with the formatting. I threw a couple up there. They might be new to you, Coco and Pandoc. They basically try to help take all these different formats that we deal with and try to massage them and put them into one usable format. So you might have MP3s, you might have videos, you might have a Word document and a PDF, and you got all this, and you're like, how do I create one usable resource? Well, these will kind of help walk you through that and give you some applications. And last but not least, don't feel like you're kind of the only one in this world. There are actually conferences that deal with this, and they're not very many, but they're concentrated. It's kind of like Cali. We're really a small group of people who deal with just computer-assisted legal education. These deal with just the idea of open resource in the area of education. So I put up here OpenCon, OpenEd, the Open Education Consortium, and the UK even has one that was just held this year, OER 16. So, maybe branch out and find other ways to learn about this topic if you're interested, and realize that there are actually quite a few out there. So, we have actually come to the end of my talk. I guess I was right when I said it might be about 30, 40 minutes. So I'm hoping that you guys have some questions for me. I put a little tag up there for Elmer's class tomorrow because I think he might be talking some information I mentioned, so maybe consider going to his RIP Mix and Learn with Callie Law Books. I know I'm going to be there. What do you guys think about OER? Is it something that would be possible in your institutions? Are you interested? Do you think it could be done?
What I see is, there's not a good filter for like high quality from low quality.
Right.
Yeah.
The lack of editorial skill, too, might be an issue there.
Quality thing. Schools that are doing this wide scale have set up programs, and I would recommend, by the way, you mentioned the Open Ed conference this year. You really should. It's a plane ride, but I've been there a few times. I've presented there. Quality thing is being handled by allowing, first of all, in the first place. So it's not necessarily a free-for-all. And frankly, the market appears distorted. Faculty don't adopt things that they don't think quality standard. So quality. A lot of the stuff is getting built kind of after some sort of initial quality. One of the things about H2O, like if you go to the H2O, because it's open.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem, but that's.
I need to repeat your answer to this microphone.
No, I think it probably.
Yes.
Hey, Lawrence, here.
Good to see you again.
I'll admit.
So it's open to them, but you've not created it for the rest of the legal
It
community.
makes me feel good, it's nice to get
All right, all right. I'm glad to see you're doing that. Do they like the material? Do they find it,
well,
I mean,
they're not gonna read anything.
Right.
They have to go out
there's an assessment tool right there. Yep.
and do a quiz and, oh,
Great. Cool.
they like it all in one place.
Yeah, well, it's convenient and
Yeah, the quizzes are in there and which I need to tag them all now that you,
you don't have to wait for the publisher to put, yep,
it makes it easy.
yep. So,
Do an online free.
you touched upon the real value there, is that you can personalize it and make it your own use. I mean, our school, Hawaii, would do that too. We have certain areas of law that's very unique to Hawaii, and so I could see the advantage our professors would find to be able to put that material in a teaching tool that they could use from year to year. We don't have any Cali resources, as far as I know, for Hawaii. We do.
For Hawaii specific? At one point, we were well into the 40s in terms of numbers of
Right.
lessons for, but they turned out to be.
Great.
Yeah. We do. I mean, if you're doing something like a hackathon kind of thing, platforms that can host Podcastr, which is podcasting tools. We also have law books, which I'll be talking about. Books, plugins that briefly, I think, sort of, on Thursday, that's essentially a self-serve publishing platform, right? Here you can actually create a book, chapters and everything, and then buttons at the end, and you get it.
Does it let you bring materials from other resources?
Oh, sure,
Okay,
sure.
perfect.
Yeah, and it'll allow, now here's an idea, right? I mean, this is the thing. One of the things that you can do with Pressbooks, there's an additional set of plugins from slowly being merged into the Pressbooks. One of the things it allows for is the federation of search across instances. So you've got one in Hawaii, you've got one in South Carolina. Search each other's materials in to
Sounds content rich, wonderful.
yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll end with one last little picture. So This is the cold island or mountains that's on the windward side. You've probably seen Jurassic Park. They use those mountains. There's other movies I have too. So we have mountains in Hawaii too. So yeah. But thank you, everyone.
Geologically distinct from a volcano, or are they?
It's from a volcano, definitely. We don't have active volcanoes though on that island. They have snow in the Mountain K, Hollis Point. I got up and see it.
Last week or the week before, there was snow.
It's usually this time of year, June, July, because we're in a different.
It's a little bit shorter. There's no morning plenaries, hot breakfast, and then sessions start at 9 o'clock. And we have a couple of breaks, box lunch at like 1:50. Not that long. I often end up ducking out.
A little early for a 2 o'clock flight.
No, you mean really early for a 2 o'clock flight. Seriously, like if you're flying, we should have made it. Got it. You're probably gonna need.
How bad is the pre-check line in Atlanta?
Oh, the pre-check? You can get this along, but just nowhere near the already thing that goes with regular check. But the pre-check line, pre-check line usually moves pretty good.
She doesn't know by terror. She doesn't know by terror.
So if you pre-check, you're good. If you're just flying out, you
No,
need to get there.
I am always pre-check now.
Yeah, we're leaving tomorrow night, we're leaving at 10, so we're gonna get there. That's my office ends.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. The lines can be, and they come out of nowhere too. It's like really weird. It'd be like, because the way you go in security lines is you can sort of see them at different points before you actually get in the line. So you look over and there'll be like nobody there. And by the time you go around where they're sending you, there's like 1,000 people to get approved. You know, like, where did they come from? So, but they've been a little long.
Oh, no. The mega quest is it's
I bet it is.
we drive over.
No, I looked to see to come to Atlanta, it's like leave it.
I was thinking you was my county law library coworker. Are you still doing the circuit and stuff, or? Good luck with that.
Good job, Brian.
I don't fuck with that job.
Individuals are going
What?
to LLC.
Oh,
Going to
that's a good
Minnesota.
question, isn't it? Yeah.
Of all places from Hawaii to
Their board
Minnesota.
made that
It's like a
decision.
culture shock.
We're shocked that they're leaving. They could have stayed. We would have probably helped them out, but their board made that decision, so. For their board.
So because of the cost of living in Hawaii.
Yeah, it's not cheap. I understand it is. Charge $35, and I said, we want some skin. sure they'd probably just sit.
They write a book, they get.
That's what our
That was my
professors,
next question.
they make money, yeah, they make money off those textbooks.
I always
Yeah, they
thought
gotta
you
make
weren't
two
supposed to
coupons.
use your own textbook.
Yeah.
They get, students
Oh,
get more important.
one of our professors, oh, he is ridiculous. He makes them buy them, he redoes it every 3 years and he makes them buy it, they have to buy it.
That's ethically not. Thanks for those darn pictures on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
Good enough to get people to come in.